You're funny. Boy, I am.
That email address is your gateway. You will get other information that you can follow up, but that will be your gateway to pursue your application. For those of you that came in late, you can use your phones, your tablets, etc. to record the presentation, lock it down, then share it. Ushers is 10 to 3. Ushers is 10 to 3.
This is the new session. I'll put this in the last one.
Sorry about all of the we have more people interested in the event than expected. But today I'm going to be speaking to you about the Windrush compensation scheme, what the eligibility criteria is, how to apply, what the application process looks like, and any other useful information as well of what you can add into the form. Next slide, please. So my name is Katie Wilson Downey, and I am an entrepreneur and a community activist. And I found out about this scheme by hearing it in the community and watching the news and stuff, and by understanding that my dad come from that era. So I've always known that my dad come from the Windrush era. So when I heard about the scheme, I called my dad and I said, "Dad, have you heard about this scheme?" And he said, "No." When I told him, we knew that he was eligible, so I supported him to apply, and he was one of the first people to apply back in 2019. But he was a successful claimant, and he did get a lot of money, so that's the reason why I want everyone to be aware of this scheme, because it's very likely that you're also eligible as well. So we're going to talk about what it means to be eligible, and then what evidence that you need to collect. Next slide, please. So the government brought out this scheme. They announced it in 2018 for it to open in April 2019. And this scheme is awarded to anyone from the Windrush era. Now, a lot of people are confused about what the Windrush era means. So, and many of the elders, when I've spoken to them, they said to me, "Oh, I don't qualify, I didn't come on the ship, but if I qualify and I'm mixed race and born in Britain, then I'm sure that you would qualify as an elder." So, what is the main criteria? If you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, then it's very likely that you're eligible if you come from a British Commonwealth nation. So, most of the Caribbean islands were British Commonwealth nations. Some African countries were also British Commonwealth nations, and even some non-black countries are even listed on there. Yeah, if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, you qualify. Next slide, please. But if you've had deportation and immigration issues, you would get an award of compensation. A lot of people don't realise that they've had immigration issues, but if you've had to be naturalised or neutralised, then that you can apply for the deportation and immigration part of this application. So a lot of our elders come here and they had to pay or even do the free process of naturalisation or neutralisation when you was already British. You was already British due to the British Nationality Act 1981, which stipulates that if you was born in a British Commonwealth nation before a specific date, then you are a British subject. A British subject means that you are classed as a British citizen by birthright and by law. Therefore, when you come to this country, you was already British, so the fact that you have to go through a whole process and be told if you don't naturalise by this date, then you're deported or you're going to be fined, and they would scare you, you know. And the fact is, British by laws, the whole process of the naturalisation and neutralisation, that alone means that you've suffered. You should have never have had to have gone through that. Now, many of our elders say, "Oh, when I come, I was naturalised And from being naturalised, I've worked and everything, and I've had no issues, and I own my house. Guess what? You still qualify because you never should have had to be naturalised or neutralised, and you never should have paid for it. But even if you got it for free, you still qualify. So, sorry, questions have to come at the end. I'm really, really sorry. I can't take questions in between my slides. So on here is a list of countries, a list of nations that are eligible for the scheme. Don't worry if you don't see your nation listed on here, because there's many that are not listed on here, but I'm just going to name a few of them just so you can get an understanding of how far and wide this scheme is. So on there we've got St. Lucia, Samoa, the Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Solomon Islands, South Africa, St. George and the Sandwich Islands. We've even got like Sri Lanka and stuff on there. We've got Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Trinidad and Tobago, the Gambia, the Bahamas, Tanzania, Swaziland, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and of course Jamaica. There's so many places that are on there that make you eligible. So whether you're Caribbean, whether you're directly African, that you should, very likely that you have to be sorry, the mind's playing up. Next slide, please. If you don't see your country on there, remember, don't panic. Just still do the application if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation. So, who is eligible? People who entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation is eligible. And I know I've said that lots of times, I'm going to say it again lots of times throughout the presentation just to make people fully aware of what the date is. But their children as well. So for example, my dad came to the UK from Jamaica before the specific date in 1973. He entered the UK in 1971. When my dad came here, he was 17 years old. He was left in Jamaica by his mum when he was 6 years old, and he grew up with his grandma on his dad's side. He grew up without his mum. Growing up without your mum as a child in your childhood has psychological impact on us, and a lot of us have been through that, you know. And a lot of us may see people in our community that look like they're struggling with mental health, or look like they're struggling with substance misuse, smoking crack or whatever, or women doing behaviours that are kind of that are basically killing themselves, basically, destructive behaviour, and people may look down on them, but you never know what they're dealing with, and it's very likely that anyone, especially that is born in the 70s or before that, and experienced trauma through this scandal. The government acknowledge that it's a scandal now, and that's why they're paying us compensation. And I say all of that to say, make sure that you apply, make sure that you support your elders to apply, make sure that you support your family members to apply as well, even the ones who you think may not be worth it. All right, if you come before the 1st of January 1973, you're eligible, but so are all of your children as well. Every single one of them can claim independently. My father has 9 kids. I think about 8 of us have applied already. About 3 of us have been successful already, at least 3 of us. And my father, he was successful as well. So I got my compensation last year. I got £20,000. And as I said, I don't qualify for immigration or deportation because I'm British born and my mum's white as well. But with all of that said, if I qualify, then you in here, especially the elders then, you all qualify as well. So make sure that you apply, because I don't think I ever would have saw £20,000 in my bank at once without applying for this scheme. Do you know what I mean? So everyone needs to apply. My dad, he got way more than that. He got way more than that. I'm not going to disclose how much he got, but he was into the high thousands. So please make sure that you do apply, and don't be selfish as well and just apply for yourself. Make sure you support your elders to apply. It's better if you support your elders to apply first, because when you do your application, it's easy for them to trace it back to your father or the person who come then. So I supported my father to apply, then my elder brother to apply, and then I applied myself. It took them about longer than a year to assess my dad's compensation application, because he was one of the first people in 2019 when it first opened. Mine was just under a year, but my sister applied recently, and she got her award in less than 8 months, probably sooner than that. So please do make sure that you apply. Trust me, it works and it's real. So we're going to go on to the next slide, please. But I'm reading out the information, so if you can take notes, that'll be useful. But all of this information is actually written on the applications itself and on the government website. So I'll read out the address for the government website, and this is where all of you need to apply for the applications. So the applications for the compensation scheme are free. So if you everyone get your pens and paper ready. It's www.gov.uk/the Windrush compensation scheme. That's www.gov.uk/the Windrush compensation scheme. Now, you need to know that website because that's the only website where you should download forms from. Any other forms won't qualify for the application, you know. And there's people out there that are putting all type of information on the internet, so whatever information you get, make sure it's from the government website because that's where the factual information is and that's where the application forms are as well. A lot of this information is actually taken directly from the government website, by the way. The reason why I've done this presentation is because a lot of the language that they use on the government website and on the application forms is a little bit complex. So the reason why I do this presentation is to make everyone understand the process, but also to understand it clearly. There's different types of applications. There's the application for the people who come before the 1st of January 1973. They are the primary claimants. So if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, you need to apply on a primary application form. If you apply on a different application form, you're going to be told no and you're going to think you're not eligible, when in fact you've just written it on the wrong form. So if you come before the 1st of January 1973, it's a primary claimant application, or if your parents did and they're still alive. If your parents or family members come to the UK before the 1st of January 1973 and they're no longer alive, then you need to apply on the representative of an estate application. That's the name of it. Representative of an estate application for deceased family members. If you're applying for a deceased family member, what you need to do is you need to first and foremost write down and evidence how that person is eligible for the scheme. So say for example, if I was applying for my granddad, I would first write that he come to the UK in 1962 and he come here by aeroplane or boat or whatever. I'd write down the method and I'd say which part of Jamaica he left and then which part of England he arrived to and the dates, if I have the dates. Any evidence, some of us still have the original travel documents for our parents or grandparents. Some people have the nationalisation or neutralisation paper. Some people have their tickets of what they used to get on the boat or the plane. If you have any of those, use that. If you don't, then use what you can. So for example, if my granddad come then but I didn't have proof of any travel documents, but I had proof of his national insurance number, and I have his birth paper that says he was born in Kingston, but he got his UK national insurance number, say like in 1969, then of course I would use that as evidence to show like a chronology of what he's been doing in that time. A lot of us think that we don't have evidence, but trust me, we do. So I helped a homeless guy fill out this application form and apply for the compensation scheme. And he had nothing, he had no documents, he didn't have anything. But what I was able to support him with is retrieving documents to prove that he was in care as a child and as a teenager, and then evidence from the prison system and from the police and stuff to show that he's got a track record of being in the UK from this date to that date. And I know that sometimes people say, I don't want to use that, or what if they refuse me because I've been to prison? It's not the case. If you're eligible, you're eligible. It doesn't matter whether you've been to prison, whether you're... I think, to be honest, even if you are in prison, I'd be surprised if they refuse to let people in prison apply, because the reasons why you're applying is due to trauma that you've experienced. So I don't know anyone who's excluded from applying to this compensation scheme other than people who do not meet the basic eligibility criteria. So all of us have evidence, even Evidence, if you've been in school and college here, you've got that evidence. If you've been on benefits, you've got evidence that you've been here. It shows full evidence of your addresses. It shows evidence, if you grew up without your parents, but you grew up with other adults here in the UK, you should be named on their child benefits or whatever. There's always a way to prove where you lived, and like in terms of what address and what area as well. There's always a way to evidence it. Other than evidencing through your benefits and prison records or social worker records, if you've been employed here, you can use your employment history, and if you've got any health records, so if you've ever been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, stress, any other type of health issues, emotional health issues, physical health issues, mental health issues, if you've been detained under the Mental Health Act, you can use all of that. Number one, if you've been treated unfairly, but number two, that you've suffered in your life. If you've used any support service for anything, use that as evidence. Now, all you need to do, because some people think, well, I've got none of those letters in my house. I know that, but you can call these agencies and you can request a record of your files, or you can ask them to write you a letter to state that you used their service between this year and that year. That's all you need to do. Now, if you contact an agency and they're not allowed to refuse to provide you your own documents, but if they do, there's two pieces of legislation you can use on them. So there's the DSAR legislation, which means it's a direct subject access request. If you write to any company, any official company in the UK, and use a DSAR, it's DSAR, which stands for Direct Subject Access Request. If you write to them under that and request your information, they have to provide it to you by law. Now, if that fails, which it shouldn't, you can use the Freedom of Information Act. So if you write to someone, you would write something like, I don't know, Dear DWP Benefits. Under the Freedom of Information Act, I request a copy of files, or I request confirmation that I've used your service between, I don't know, 2000 and 2020. Can you please confirm this? They have to respond to you within 28 days. Every single organisation in the UK that's officially registered. So trust me, there's a way to evidence it. For our sisters, if you've had children here, if you think, oh, well, I've got none of my original documents from when I entered the UK, all right then. If you've got evidence to say that you was in Jamaica, say in 1960, but then you've got evidence that you applied for your national insurance in the UK in 1964, then that's evidence. You need to just evidence as much as possible anything that you claim for. Next slide, please. Anything that you claim for that you haven't provided evidence for, you won't be awarded any compensation. So if you're applying yourself as a close family member, so if you was born in the UK and your parents come then or your grandparents come then, you apply as a close family member. You need to first and foremost declare who that person is, how you're related to them, and when they come to the UK. So this is going to take a lot of communication with the family, and even if you don't speak to them because of this and because of that, just spark the conversation. When you mention money, you say, oh, Nan, did you know you're eligible for compensation? You know, trust me, the conversations are going to start flowing, and even you need information from the family in order to complete the form. If you don't get information from them, it's going to be very hard to kind of track and trace who you are, how you're related to someone who come before 1973, and then how you've suffered. So on the application form, there's 3 areas where you can be awarded compensation. The first is immigration and deportation. Immigration and deportation, on there you'll put nationalisation, neutralisation, anytime you've been asked to prove your right in the UK, any letters you've received from the UK Home Office stating that you are British or you're not British or whatever, you then need to if you're applying as a close family member, what you need to do is you need to evidence how, when the person who came before the 1st of January 1973, how they suffered and how that's impacted your life. So for example, due to what my dad experienced, he got PTSD. He was invited here by the Queen to be in the British Army, and when he come to be in the British Army, he was racially abused by the people in the army. They were wicked to him, even though he fought for this country 2 times. And he resigned from the army after serving for 7 years, and following on from that, he got PTSD. That affected his mental health. He got sectioned a couple of times. That obviously affected his mental health even more. It meant that he couldn't be there for us as children. It meant for some part of our childhoods we had to grow up without him being around. That means that also part of his life he had to grow up without being able to love his children properly or be able to see them. Now all of that affects the family dynamics and the family relationships. Because of that, it affected my quality of childhood, and you know, people can have attachment issues, struggle with relationships in their life. It can have a lifelong effect on people. So with all of that said, it's very, very, very important to speak to people in your family, to truly understand what they've been through, and then you'll actually understand why they acted certain ways towards you or just had certain types of behaviours. It is a little bit stressful to recall on past traumas, and it is very stressful to write it all down on a form as well and see it all in writing. So it does take long. It didn't. Some people say, right, why don't you send us a template of the application? It's not that easy because everyone's life is different. And the Home Office are not stupid. Do you think if they receive 10 applications with the exact same information, they're not going to ask questions? Everyone's experience is different. The way in which people come is different. The age you were when you arrived is going to be different to each other. The age that our parents arrived or our grandparents arrived, and how they were split up, and how that affects us, and how that affects how we then receive love or give love, or how we parent. All of that needs to go with it. And I said earlier that in my family, like, intergenerational trauma is real. If people have been through things, it can be passed down to our younger generations. And I'll give you an example. So my father, he's been to prison a few times. My older brother has been to prison a few times. My nephew, my older brother's son, who's in his early 20s, is currently in prison now. And at one point, they were all in the same prison at the same time. Now, I know that might sound funny or not, but in reality, it's actually not funny. It's very sad. And the fact of the matter is, it's all due to the trauma that we've been through as a people, and the trauma that we've learned about from our previous ancestors, what they've been through as well. Intergenerational trauma is a big thing, and trust me, most of the fuckery that's happened in our family, excuse my language, is due to and relating to all the way back to this, yeah? And also stemming from the transatlantic slave trade as well. So we have been through a lot as a people, so we must forgive ourselves sometimes, but we must also claim the compensation that is being offered to us. The government offered £500 million, and they based that on the population of black people in this country that is likely to have came from these countries. Can you, next slide, please. So, as I was saying, many people in our community talk about reparations, and they're willing to walk from Trafalgar Square all the way to Brixton. But are you willing to fill out this compensation form for your reparations? Do you know what I mean? The same people will stand there on Emancipation Day every single year. Where's your form? Stop talking about reparations and come and claim your reparations. This is the first time the UK government has ever offered us money as a people. It's real, it works, we're getting thousands and thousands of pounds. Everybody needs to apply. I cannot stress how important it is to download the form, print the form, fill it out, support your family members to fill it out. Take time with yourself and your family members, trust me, because it is long and it is stressful. But with all of that said, it works, and I need you all to apply. So, different types of evidence. I think we've discussed most of these. But yeah, history of your bank account, if you had a post office account, if you have a driver's license. The DVLA has kept a record of every single place you've ever registered a car or registered your driving license. So again, that's how you can look for records to prove that you've been here all of this time. For those of us that have been born here, next slide please. For those of us that have been born here, we don't have to prove that we've been here all of our lives, because they know that because of our British status. But we do need to explain how it's impacted us. So any type of evidence that you can get, please use it. And I must state that anything what you write on the form that you can't evidence, you won't be given an award of compensation for. You will only be awarded for that which you can evidence. So there's no point in thinking, all right, I'm going to make loads of stuff up. That's not going to work. You can, of course, exaggerate on the things you do have evidence for. You can exaggerate on how it's affected your life, but some people don't need to exaggerate because of the things they've been through. So remember that if you're writing on impact of life, the impact of life category, which everyone qualifies for, you need to write about employment. Okay, does anybody have a Mercedes with the registration plate N for November 11VCN, because you're blocking someone in, a resident, and they need to get out? That's a Mercedes N11VCN. Please can you move your vehicle to let the resident out? Thank you. Categories that you can apply under, that this is what you need to write down, right? You need to write your history of housing. If you've ever been homeless, if you've ever had to sleep on a friend's sofa, if you've ever been evicted from your house and all of that, you can put all of that. If you've ever had issues in your house, poor housing from the council, you can put all of that down. If you've ever been detained, that's under the Mental Health Act. That's also under immigration as well. If you've ever been detained under any Immigration Act, you can claim for that. Each day that you've been detained, you get thousands and thousands of pounds for, by the way. If you've ever been in a deportation, you're going to get £40,000 or above for this if you've ever been in a deportation centre. You can get evidence from courts and from the deportation centre itself if you haven't kept the records. If you've ever been at risk of being removed, now some people have actually been sat down on the charter plane before they've been told, oh sorry, we can't deport you, can you get off the plane? Some people were never asked to get off the plane, they were actually returned. Those type of people, you're getting the most money, trust me. Health, I've already mentioned health, but education as well. If anyone's got children where they've been excluded or expelled, or if you've had a negative time in education, you can claim for that as well, you know. So even if you're like in my age range, but your kids are being excluded and stuff, you can relate it, you can claim on this, but you relate it to institutional racism and systemic racism in society. So you're not only claiming for the traumas that our parents have been through and how it's affected us, but how white British society affects us here and now today as well. That's still part of the form. And for our elders, well, for anyone, any age, but particularly our elders, if there was any incidents of racism where you was attacked by racists, where police were involved, if you've ever been attacked by the police or treated unfairly by them, put all of that down as well, please. Yeah, and if you've ever had to pay any fees or legal costs, some people have come here from the Caribbean, been given naturalisation papers or neutralisation papers, gone back on holiday to Jamaica or whichever island they're from, and they've been stopped there and been told they can't come back here, and they've had to pay thousands and thousands of pounds just to come back here when they already had a house here. All of that, you can claim for all of that. If you're claiming on behalf of someone who has died and they owned houses or businesses or whatever and they got ripped off or you didn't get your fair share or whatever, then you can claim for all of that as well. Even if you've had compensation for certain things before outside, but it still affected you, you can put it on the form. You don't have to declare that you've had compensation for it before. You can just say, for example, I had a complaint against the police who arrested me for no reason, and when they arrested me, they beat me up or whatever, and then released me under NFA. You can put all of that down. You just need to contact the police on 101, request a copy of your custody records. That's what you do if you're using custody records. Call 101, request custody records, and wait for that evidence to come. If you need to request evidence from the NHS about any treatments, by the way, if you've ever had any operations and they've gone wrong, or your family members have been killed by the hospital or whatever, you can claim for all of that. You can get evidence by calling 111, that's a non-emergency NHS number. You call 111 and you can request medical records. They'll probably give you another contact number or for a service called PALS, that's a patient advisory line or something like that. Patient advisory liaison service, that's who's responsible for issuing medical records. So and remember to use the Freedom of Information Act request if you need to. Next slide, please. Yes, so how to apply. So I gave everyone the government website. What you do, go on there and make sure it's the correct form. The links are here, but these are just the links taken direct from the government website. So if you go on the government website using the information I gave you earlier, this is what you're going to find, all right. So the primary claimant is for people who come before the 1st of January 1973. Close family members of the children, sons, daughters, parents. Someone asked me a key question earlier. What if your grandma come then, or your mum come then, but she had children in the Caribbean that she left there and they've never been to the UK, but she come before the 1st of January 1973. Can they claim? The answer is yes. They can claim because they suffered, and they can claim under the close family member form because they are a child of someone who entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973. So if you're supporting your family, or if they come here before that date, but then say like in 1999 they decided to go back to Jamaica or whichever island or nation they're from, and they didn't come back here, can they still claim? The answer is yes. People from abroad, people who live abroad, that did come then, or that are children of people who come then, can apply on the same forms. So primary claimant if they come then, or the child if they come then. All they need to do though is email it to this email address. I'm going to read out this email address because it's different to the one that we use. So it's the Commonwealth Task Force at homeoffice.gov.uk. That's where we tell our family and friends to send their application to if they don't longer live in the UK. So that's Commonwealth Task Force at homeoffice.gov.uk. There is a telephone number for the Windrush helpline, but they've been giving people the incorrect advice, telling people they're not eligible when they actually are. I will read out the number just because I know some people may find it useful, but if they tell you you're not eligible, don't listen to them. Fill out the application and make the Home Office actually tell you that you're not eligible after you've completed the application. So the helpline telephone number for the Windrush Compensation Scheme, this is the Government Home Office, this is not my number, yeah? It's 0800 678 1925. That's 0800 678 1925. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes. Only if they're eligible, yes. So make them apply first, the parent, right? And then you see, as soon as they say that you're eligible, if they tell any of you eligible, know that your children are eligible, okay? Know that your children are eligible. It's better if you do it by generation. Start with the generation who come before that time, then go under and under and under, because they will link it, you see. They will link it up. And if they qualify, if you qualify, it's very likely that your children are going to qualify. I think they only give it up to 3 or 4 generations though. But, say for example, if it's a 5th generation, but they lived with their grandma or whatever, they would qualify as well as a close family member. Yes, so the process is, you collect your evidence, right? Find out what evidence you have in your house, find out what evidence your family members may have, and then find out what evidence any external services may have, right? That can take a while though, because when you make these applications for information, it can take up to 28 days, or sometimes longer, for the hospital or police or whoever to give you these records. Just wait, I know it's long, but just wait, because it's all going to make sense in the end. Once you collect your evidence, you have to write it like a biography. Okay. Yeah, so you have to write it like a biography. Write it from the beginning, when you got left in Jamaica, or when you first stepped on a plane, or when you first realised that you moved to another country. Write it, if you're the child, write it when your dad first come or mum first come, and what their experience was. Then you can write about your first experiences of racism or any troubles in any of the areas that we've mentioned, such as health, education, all of that. Then, once you write down your biography, then what you need to do is make sure that what you've written matches all of the evidence. If you've written anything that you notice you've not got evidence for, get it quickly, because it's going to prolong your application otherwise. Once you send off your application, anything you've written that you haven't sent evidence for, they're going to be questioning you for the evidence, so it's just going to make it longer. Once you've got all of that information down and the evidence, and you've gone through each section of the form to make sure everything's correct, Then what you do is you need to take a copy of it. Take a copy even if you take a picture of it on your phone or scan it. You need to do that because if they say they've not received your application or if it somehow gets lost, at least you've got another copy, because to write something like that is so long and it's traumatic as well. Once you've done all of that, post it. It is free post, but if you're like me, you probably like to track your post. So I put it on a signed form post so I could track when they received it, so they couldn't lie to me as well. And then once they receive it, after about 2 weeks, they'll write you a letter with a reference number that states that we've accepted your application, we're assessing it, this is your reference number. Anytime you contact us, use this reference number. Any letter they send you, keep hold of it, right? Keep hold of it, do not let it go, at least until you get the money in your bank. Then they'll write to you, it goes back and forth for a little while, they'll write to you just to clarify some details and all of that. Once they've clarified it all and they think it's all ready and we've got all of the evidence, they're going to pass it to a decision maker who's going to assess it and then say what amount they think you should get based on the evidence you've presented. They don't base it on what you've said, they base it on your evidence. So if you said 10 things but you only evidence 5, you're only going to get paid for 5. So once you've gone through that process, a decision maker will pass it to another decision maker to check that the first decision maker's decisions are correct, and then they'll send you an offer. Once they send you an offer, you can decide whether you're going to accept the offer or whether you're going to refuse it. If you've been through a lot of stuff, don't accept the first offer. Request the second one. When they offered me £20,000, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take that. But I could have challenged it, but I just thought it's a lot considering I was born here and stuff. So yeah, it's up to you whether you accept the first offer or if you don't. Or if you're really not happy with the offer, then you can appeal it and say, or a decision. So if they say you're not eligible, but you know you are, then appeal the decision and follow the appeal process. If you do get to that stage where you're appealing or where you've got an offer and you don't know whether you should take it or not, or even if they've sent you a letter and you don't understand it, get in touch with the Black Child Agenda and myself or Cheryl will contact you and we'll guide you through what the next steps are. Now, I'm going to close because this building, we were only supposed to have it up until 2 p.m, but due to the mass turnout, obviously they gave us the building for longer. I must say thank you to the people who did give us the building, but I'm going to end the presentation now. I'm going to take 3 questions. Yes, please. Sorry? The address to send the form to? To get the form, it's www.gov.uk/the Windrush compensation scheme. If you type that into Google, you're going to see it come up. Only click on the government website, don't click on no other site. No other site has got nothing for any of you. Click on the government website and it's going to show you the free applications. Yes, sir? There's no deadline as yet, so everyone needs to apply as soon as possible because we don't know if there's going to be a deadline. Yes, sir? Yes. So did you come before 1973?
Yes, I did.
Oh, this is not the correct form for you. This is what your children would use. This is a close family member form for someone who come before that time. You need to get the primary claimant form. You get the primary claimant form, but keep this for your children or close family members. Yes, sis? What you should do, if I was you, I'd write an application for him anyway and just see if he passes through. And if he doesn't pass through, they'll probably give you advice of what you should do. Yes, sis, I can take 2 more questions after this.
My mom had 13 of us. Can each of us claim?
You can all claim for yourself. My dad has 9 children and about 8 of us have claimed so far. The rest are going to claim soon. All of you can claim as a close family member. But 1 second, please. 1 second, can you just listen to me so I can explain otherwise you're not going to hear it, yeah? Every single child can, even if she had 100 children, every single one of you can claim. Every single one of you can claim. But you can only claim for yourselves as close family members. Now, if your mom is no longer alive, only one of you can apply for the representative of a state. So one of you apply, the next of kin, right, or the legal appointee, and then every single one of you claim on the close family member form. Share your information with each other because you've probably been through a lot the same, but you probably also have individual cases. Yes, sir. We don't currently have it on YouTube, but you can access it via the Black Child Agenda website. Cheryl's going to read out the name of her website in a second. Yes, lady at the back, did you have a question? Okay. One more question, lady in the pink coat. Sorry, I can't hear you. Oh, if you don't see your country there, don't panic. I just kind of got some of those lists off of the government website. There's loads of, I think the majority of the Caribbean countries can qualify. One of the only nations that don't qualify is Montserrat, and that's kind of like South America. I'm going to stop answering questions now, but I'm going to give the microphone to this gentleman. He will take some questions as well.
Listen, what I'm going to tell you. As long as your country was a colonized country by England, and if you're born before that country got independence, you're born property of the crown. So for you old people like me, elderly people, on your application, you also the colonial ruling that you're born property of the crown.
I'm gonna pull back.
Yeah, what I'm saying, you also include on your application that you're born property of the crown. As long as you were born before your country received independence from Britain, like I was. I was born property of the crown. I came here 72, and my 74 was in the British Army. I didn't have to do 5 years because I'm property of the crown. Okay?
Guys, do you know what? We have to wrap up because we're an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours over time. And, you know, we didn't realize that the outpouring would be this big. Thank you, you're welcome. Thank you very much. And what we're going to do, if you need to speak to any of us, we have an email, CherylPhoenix number 11 at gmail.com. That's with a C, CHERYLPHOENIX, number 11 at gmail.com. I really appreciate the fact that you guys stood outside for so long. You know this is serious, right? And we need to get our money. Personally, I think it's an insult that they're only offering us between £10,000 and £100,000. Considering our trauma, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and the rape and the pillaging and the beatings that we've been through as a people, that's not enough. However, we will be supporting those that we can in groups to be able to fill out the application. So if you send the email, I'm going to add another link on the Black Child Agenda website, so the information's there, the slides are there, so that you guys know how to do it. And I think that's it, because I have to get out, we're supposed to finish at 2, but thank you very much.
Yeah?